Rob Desantis. What will he say to Laura Ingraham? They're having a mid-off. That's what I say. Let's take a look.
In primary debate in Milwaukee. So where do things stand? Well, a voter in Iowa summed it up this way. He said he likes both Trump and DeSantis, and while he has some concerns about Trump's electability, he said the more indictments that Trump gets, the better his numbers do. Well, what does that mean? Governor Ron DeSantis joins me now to respond from Tallahassee. Governor, it's good to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. That does seem to be, so far at least, the inescapable truth.
Oh, God.
So if I'm you, how do I convince the GOP voters that while these indictments are obviously political, lawfare, I guess you could call it, that you're still the one who's most electable? How do you make that argument?
Well, because I think going forward, the question really is what are we going to do about all this, Laura? And what we need to do is get a president that obviously can beat Biden.
It's mind-boggling to me that Ron DeSantis is the most industry plant-ass candidate of all time, okay? He is literally Hillary Clinton. He's an industry plant. And yet, because he is so incredibly, patently, apparently unlikable, so rizzless, that despite having the deck stacked in his favor, he still keeps losing more and more approval in the polls. It's crazy. It's crazy. Of course, he's a Disney adult. He has the facial features of a Muppet, so that part does make sense. That tracks.
But that could actually end the weaponization of federal power through the DOJ, the FBI. So, for example, with me as president, on day one, Christopher Wray gets sent packing. You're going to see the DOJ cleared out. We are going to ensure a single standard of justice in this country again. And I can say that with credibility because I've done that in the state of Florida. We've drained the swamp in here. We've gotten rid of negligent elections.
Just really funny to say that about Florida in general because, like, it obviously figuratively is incorrect, but also literally saying that about Florida makes it even funnier because it's just all a swamp.
Supervisors in South Florida, we've removed 2 different progressive prosecutors funded by Soros who were not enforcing the law. So I've shown an ability to take action and get the job done. And as the president, I am going to do the same thing. Look, our country is in decline for a number of different reasons, economic, cultural, but part of the reason we're in decline is because our constitutional system is totally out of whack. We need to get it back in order. I'm the guy that knows how to do, but you got to be disciplined. You got to be focused. You got to have attention to detail because the swamp is not going to give up its power voluntarily.
Like, Ron DeSantis is like, I'm going to run for president because I want to defend Trump even harder than Trump ever could. Is not exactly the absolute slapper of a campaign message that you want to put out there, because ultimately you're like, oh yeah, well, I'm actually like, the reason why people hate the FBI and law enforcement now isn't because they just hate them for genuine reasons, real reasons, because they are like the jackbooted thugs of the armed, heavily militarized surveillance state. They hate them because, they hate them because they shit on Donald Trump. Okay? That's it. So anytime you say, well, technically, I'm going to do a better job of like firing and defunding the federal law enforcement agencies, you're still saying, I'm just going to do a better job of protecting Trump than Trump ever could. And that's a really weird message to run on when you're running against the man himself. Because ultimately, you know who these guys think will protect himself better? Donald Trump, okay? That's it. You are not going to convince the Republican primary voter base that you are going to do a better job of protecting Trump than Trump himself. You can't convince them that you'll be a better Trump than Trump himself to begin with, which is why you're always going to have an issue. A wise man once told me, son, if other people are copying you, that's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. Because ultimately, you're still going to be number one. They can only be the second best version of you. And that's what Ron DeSantis does not realize. He will only be, if he kept doing the I'm Trump, I'm better than Trump at being Trump, he's almost likely to always be the number 2 at being a Trump clone. And the reality is, he's not even that good at it. The more he moves away from behaving like Trump with the mannerisms and you know, the usage of language, the more his approval ratings suffer, the less likable he becomes. I'm not sure that's his strategy, just hoping Trump goes to jail. I know he's just hoping Trump goes to jail, but what he fails to recognize is that even if Trump goes to jail, he can still win the Republican primary, okay? And if Trump goes to jail, and let's say the RNC operates like the DNC does and says, well, sorry, you're in jail, so we've made a new rule where we've decided no, presidential candidate that won the primaries that's in jail is or is under serious legal scrutiny is allowed to be the presidential candidate, then you have depressed your voter turnout for the general dramatically. The most active base of support within the Republican Party is the Trump base of support. They're there no matter what. They ride or die, right? So let me tell you, if you cut those guys out by fucking over Donald Trump, you're going to have a major problem in your hands because they don't give a shit about the Republican Party. They care about Trump. And Ron DeSantis, on top of that, doesn't have the charisma to actually fill the void left by Donald Trump. It's like trying to fill the charisma void that Barack Obama left in the Democratic Party with Hillary Clinton. They are basically running the DNC gambit from 2016. That's it.
So do you think that if Trump were to win, that he wouldn't fire Wray or wouldn't try to reform?
For the record, that's why I always say Donald Trump is Obama for white people. Like, Obama was incredibly charismatic, ran very progressively, which he didn't obviously follow through on, but ultimately he was very charismatic. He activated bases of support from younger generations that had not been seen and has not really been seen since in a cohesive, consistent manner, with the last election exception, which was mail-in ballots, historic COVID turnout. Everybody wants Donald Trump out of office. So obviously that's not a great example because I don't think that those results will ever be repeated. Especially due to universal mail-in ballot registration and early access voting. Like, those two things made it a very different election. Analyzing any other election that comes after that, looking at that election, you're gonna arrive at really, really wrong interpretations. But anyway, yeah, Donald Trump is Obama for the Republican Party in the sense that he comes at it like an outsider. He rails on the institutional control of the Republican Party. He wins. He's very charismatic. And then the Republican Party looks at that and can't figure out a way to streamline that thing. You know what I mean? They can't do that. They can't recreate Obama in the Democratic Party, just like you can't recreate Trump in the Republican Party. I'm so interested in seeing what voter turnout will be in 2024. There's two competing factors when you look at voter turnout in 2024. One factor is ease of access to voting. It has stuck in many other places, like the prior allowances that were made for universal mail-in ballot registration, early access voting was objectively a good thing. So a lot of people will most likely take advantage of that. A lot of states haven't been able to roll that back successfully. So on that front, that increases voter turnout no matter what. But on the other hand, you have two historically intensely unfavorable candidates matching up against one another in the general election, which objectively destroys voter turnout. Think about it. Joe Biden, not liked at all. What was it, like 75% of the Democratic Party wished he would not run for re-election in 2024. That is insane. That's an incredible, impressive statistic, okay? Impressive level of fuck up. On the other hand, a lot of Republicans, not to the same degree as Joe Biden, but a pretty sizable chunk of Republicans also think Donald Trump shouldn't be running. You know? So that is going to be a really, really bad race. You say 70% of Republicans think Biden didn't win. Certainly fine. That's an insane statistic. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that like they're going to go out and vote. You get that, right? Because 70% of Republicans think Biden lost and Trump is still the president means that 70% of the Republicans are jaded by the electoral process because they legitimately, in their heart of hearts, believe that Donald Trump is still the president, and yet it was stolen from them, which actually turns out is not good for voter turnout. Why do you think the Republicans, at least those in positions of power, positions of control, have been kind of railing at Trump's whole the election was stolen from me shtick? Because at a certain point, you have to realize all you're doing is telling your voters that your vote doesn't matter. So no matter how delusional 70% of the Republican voter base is, which, by the way, that number is probably smaller now. I don't think that number is as crazy nowadays. Like, that percentage is probably not accurate, or it depends on how they ask that question. You know what I mean? Whenever you talk about how much Trump was really the president, and he still is the president, you keep telling your own base of support that, no matter how hard you vote, even if you vote extra, even if you vote illegally, it doesn't matter. Democrats are still going to steal it from you. Yeah, this happened in the Georgia runoffs. Remember? This directly happened in the Georgia runoffs. There were tons of hogs who said they didn't vote in the Georgia runoff because it was rigged. So how are you going to get those guys back? How?
From the FBI, it seems like he has a personal interest in really doing that at this point, no?
Well, he had 3 years to fire Christopher Wray, and he didn't fire him. And remember, I went to the rallies in 2016, Laura. You remember them. Lock her up about holding Hillary accountable. And then 2 weeks after the election, he said, never mind that I said that, and let her off the hook. And so I think if you look at, and I give him credit, even though we're competing for the great things he did do, but one of the things he did not do was drain the swamp. I mean, the swamp got worse in his 4 years, and you had people like Wray, you had people in power who were not getting the job done. You got to take very swift action, and you got to make it happen.
Now, there are GOP strategists, I think this was a piece in The Hill, that are predicting on the Senate side and on the House side a turnout disaster if Trump doesn't become the nominee governor, saying that many of his core supporters, who are estimated to make up 25 to 35% of the party base, will take their ball and go home. Now, we saw this somewhat in Georgia during those runoff elections, Governor. Are you concerned about that, and how will you spur turnout if indeed you win the nomination?
Well, I would also say 2022 in Georgia, you saw Governor Brian Kemp win a thumping re-election, better than a lot of people were predicting. Donald Trump opposed him throughout that election, even suggested Stacey Abrams would be a better governor. And then in Florida,
Bro, what are you doing? 90% of viewers here don't care about that. They maybe like you, but no one wants to see Fox News views. That's weird. No one gives a fact. It seems boring. Don't be butthurt. Don't ban me. What? You're wrong. First of all, this is a goddamn stream full of patriots, brother. And you're wrong. I will not ban you for being incorrect, but I will give you a stern talking to. 90% of people do care about Fox News. We're the real patriots, brother. You're surrounded by MAGA patriots. I don't know if you know this, my friend. We love Fox News because it's the only truthful news outlet in America. What are you saying with your libtard mind? Snowflake? Are you scared, Snowflake? Your millionaire ego got swifted far away the ocean? Wait, what? I don't even know what this means. Anyway, hell yeah, I'm a millionaire, brother. I'm a goddamn small business owner in the United States of America, the freest country on the planet. Okay? It means you got far. Too far for us. Further away I am from you and your snowflake libtard ways, the closer I am to the truth. Patriots are in control. Why is he so dramatic? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. This ain't fun, my man. One of the greatest things that Twitch has created is this environment where like you can just yell at the TV. If you always wanted to yell at the TV and have the TV respond to you, now you have it. You know what I mean? Now I'd ban you for being a gosh darn demon rat. But unlike the libtards, we don't do that here. We value free speech. Okay? Anyway, where was I? So he's doing the thing that we talked about already, Ron DeSantis, that I think is stupid, that I have jokingly said 1,000 times over when I'm like, I hate Donald Trump for not locking Hillary. Like, he thinks that's his ticket. Once again, hating Donald Trump for not locking Hillary Clinton up is not a real thing. The reason why a lot of these hogs also hate Hillary Clinton is because she went up against Donald Trump. Okay? Now, obviously, they hate Hillary Clinton more than that, but not enough to be like, I want to punish Donald Trump by not voting for him because he didn't actually end up jailing Hillary Clinton. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, if, for example, if Donald Trump was never able to, or was able to successfully, let's say, stop the Supreme Court from overturning Roe v. Wade, the hogs would not punish him for it. Because a lot of people do not understand that, one, you cannot outflank Trump from the right, just like the Democrats can't outflank Republicans in general by trying to appeal to the patriotic sensibilities of the American population, because that's just not how elections work. Donald Trump's charisma is the reason why they like him. His rhetoric and his ability to channel the anger that Americans feel to his own personal vendetta about a group of elitist libs in New York City that never accepted him. That's what makes him good. His also profound ability to just communicate with ease the things that television men say in civil ways. Television man says, great replacement is happening, right? Where Democrats are opening up the floodgates of immigration, and this is a dangerous prospect for Western civilization, American culture, yada, yada. Donald Trump says Mexicans are rapists. Mexicans are maliciously sending their rapists over the border. That is a significantly better way to propagandize to the average dumbass. The safeguards are off in that situation. You cannot out hog the hog man, because the line isn't an ideological one for the most part. The line is designed by Donald Trump himself as a singular individual, not dissimilar to Barack Obama. You get it? Donald Trump chooses the line of rhetoric that you have to abide by.
Florida, we won re-election by a record margin for a Republican, over 1.5 million votes. Donald Trump attacked me 3 days before the midterm election. And so I think when you're talking about voters in our party base, that may be a problem if you nominate some Rockefeller Republican, but it's not going to be a problem if you nominate somebody like me who has a proven record of delivering on America First policies. And how many people get elected, they overpromise and they underdeliver? I can say with credibility, I met all the promises I made to the people of Florida. In fact, I overdelivered on my.
This is the secondary problem. That is a more holistic problem that the Republican Party faces, which is you're not supposed to deliver on those promises, you fucking idiot. You're supposed to do some of it, not all the way. Because when you go all the way, you don't have an alibi. You have no exit strategy. You can't just be like, oh, these Democrats are going crazy over my policy changes. It's not actually real. They're just greatly exaggerating. It's like this. Okay? Every racist person throughout history has known that racism is a bad concept. Like, they might be racist themselves, but they don't want to be called that. They don't want to be outed as a racist, because if they're outed as a racist, or if they're called racist, then all of a sudden, their ideology is associated with a bad thing that people kind of understand is bad, right? So you always need to have an exit strategy. You always need to be able to say, oh, I'm not racist. You're being ridiculous. You're being silly. When you realize that the Republican Party's own voters don't fully comprehend the Republican Party's strategies and the Republican Party's legislative agenda, when faced with the actual legislative agenda of the Republican Party, Republicans, on average, say, that's not real. That's not what they're doing. That'd be far too cruel if that was the case. Trump is smart enough to know that people don't actually want economic conservatism. That's why he promised not to touch Social Security and Medicare. He also understands that he must attack groups that have no political power. That's why in 2016 he held the pride flag, because getting a few percentage of the gay voters was enough for him to win. Desantis would absolutely get destroyed. His politics supports by 35% most of the country. I don't think the gay support one way or another is all that important. My point is, you're right about saying that Donald Trump actually read the room better at a time when the bathroom bill was deeply unpopular in North Carolina. He very quickly was like, yeah, I don't give a shit about this gay stuff. Who cares where Caitlyn Jenner pees or poops as long as she's peeing and pooping inside of the Trump Towers, I'm fine with it. And also there were, plenty of LGBT for Trump apparel. There was merchandise, you know what I mean? Trump famously posed with the LGBT flag that said LGBTs for Trump. There was gays for Trump, all this shit. The environment has shifted a little bit, where you always have to keep pursuing further and further more aggressive policies. So that's why people are just in broad daylight saying incredibly profoundly transphobic, homophobic things on the Republican side. But that has a I think, negative consequence for them, because then they come across as cruel and unusual to the average moderates that are like, yeah, well, my son or daughter has like gay friends. You know what I mean? It's like, fucking chill out. Like, you're being a little crazy. Not that they care all that much. They can look the other way as long as you are giving tax cuts and as long as you're like owning the libs and shit. Ron DeSantis' problem is that he's made that his primary, his modus operandi, his only thing. Okay? And when you make that your only thing and you actually pursue like genuine, tangible legislation, then people see the impact of that. Abortion being the greatest example of this. Because you no longer have plausible deniability. Everybody knows pro-life means you want a 14-year-old rape victim to not be able to get an abortion in your state. Everybody understands that. Pro-life now means and is now permanently associated with the truth. Right? What is happening? Why is everybody going crazy?
Chris Christie, you know, he's out there, you know, sticking his chest out saying, like, I'm number 2 now in New Hampshire. You worried about him?
No, look, I think that at the end of the day, we're doing what we need to do on the ground in Iowa, New Hampshire. We're going to be back there this weekend, and we're going to get the job done. I think a lot of these guys are, you know, doing this and doing that. You know, we're going to be able to get on the debate stage, and we're going to be able to hash it out. And I think I'll be able to show that I'm the guy that's got the vision. I'm the guy that can get the job done electorally. And then most important, actually get all this stuff done, because we've been talking about so many of this all this stuff, from illegal immigration and the border, dealing with China, all this stuff. Now is the time to do it. And if we don't do it in 2024, you know, I don't think we're going to be able to get the job done in our lifetime. So this is a key election so we can reverse the decline of this country and give us a new birth of freedom.
Hey, okay. Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Okay, once again, such a typical liberal way to approach the subject matter. Guys, Donald Trump's pie in the sky ideas were great, and I love it. But he's not reasonable about the way to conduct himself. He's not reasonable in his conduct, and he's not civil. And therefore, he's got into a lot of trouble, and he hasn't actually worked on the legislative side hard enough. I will actually follow through on the agenda. I will do what is possible. Okay? That is basically like the Elizabeth Warren, or maybe not even the Elizabeth Warren, but like the Democratic Party's answer to Bernie Sanders. In a way. Obviously, Ron DeSantis is trying to outflank Trump by going even further right, whereas the Democratic Party was not going to the right of Bernie Sanders, clearly, and saying his ideas were too crazy, but we are the real progressives because we actually are pushing for things that you can get across. We're the real progressives because we're not making perfect be an enemy of the good. Right? Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, not a real progressive because all he's done is all Bernie Sanders has done is name post offices, right? You get it? Can't get anything done. I will get it done. Which is, of course, a very, politics is the art of the possible neoliberal ass strategy. Ron DeSantis is like, I am the real person who can get Trump's agenda done. Yeah, that only works if you're going up against a bunch of other people, but not Donald Trump himself.